So Maven, former Tough Enough winner and YouTube video sensation, he's been doing videos about his time in WWE and as a wrestler over the last year or so. And when he makes these videos, and the person who comes up a lot is Triple H. And Maven, he sat down and made a video recently about his thoughts and why that he hates Triple H. So we're going to sit down and we're going to watch Maven discuss his involvement with Triple H. Fair use.
Share why I take shots at Triple H, give my honest opinion on the man inside and outside of the ring, and how I feel he is doing today as Chief Content Officer at WWE.
How about you? Just allowing the whole business, the athleticism, the pain, the fame, the glory, want to get laid.
My first interactions with Triple H were exactly what you saw on Tough Enough Season 1. It was brief, it was intense, and as quickly as it began was as quick as it ended. There was no filler, no fluff that you guys did.
All right, so some context. Triple H and Maven, they did not have many they didn't have many run-ins on the main roster in WWE. Maven will talk about one thing that he actually did do with Triple H. He ended up doing a tag match with him, and the other thing he did with Triple H was he would team with with Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, and Chris Benoit in a Survivor Series elimination match against Triple H, and the stipulation was that the winning team would be in charge of Raw for 4 weeks while Eric Bischoff took vacation. And in that case, Maven's team won, and each week, each member of the winning team were the general manager for the night, and each of them gave themselves a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity, Maven included. Let's continue.
Didn't see. So the first time I would actually be introduced to Triple H wouldn't come until after I was assigned WWE wrestler. The man I would later meet once I was on the road was completely different than the man I saw as a Tough Enough contestant. The Triple H I met was actually very engaging, very disarming, dare I say, charming. And he even congratulated me on winning Tough Enough. In fact, the Triple H that I was now colleagues with was 180 degrees different than the man who made sure we were all in the wrestling business for the right reasons. The man who threatened us with how the life of a wrestler is truly lived. The Triple H that I met backstage, I felt like he was in my corner. I felt like he was happy I was there, and I felt like he was there and would help me in every way possible. In fact, Triple H would be the man who provided me with my first ever pair of wrestling boots. Wrestling boots, again, are not cheap. So when he gifted me that very first pair of boots, I took that as a token of support. Early in my career, I would be under the tutelage of the game even more on the main event of SmackDown when he and I tagged against The Undertaker and Kurt Angle. Going into this match, to say I was nervous would be a complete understatement. I was backstage, again, wondering why I decided to become a professional wrestler, wondering how.
Now, I was a big Maven fan. Being the baby face that I am, I was a huge Maven fan. Top 5, one of the top 5 entrance of all time. So let's continue.
How to bottle these nerves up and somehow find the ability to go out and perform. And I found Triple H to be a North Star, to be someone I could go to, review the match over with. He was someone that definitely helped ease my nerves. He told me he would be out there and reminded me that we were tagging together. And under no circumstances was he going to look bad. And by default, I was going to then look good thanks to him. In this early match, he never asked me to do anything I wasn't comfortable with. And he made sure that we both found success that night. In fact, that entire first year of my career, I felt comfortable going up to Triple H and did so on a weekly basis. I would ask him questions about wrestling. I would pick his brain here and there. I felt like we were developing a little bit of a kindred spirit, a little bit.
Well, he is, well, he is the game.
I am the game!
Bit of a friendship, dare I say. In fact, before they debuted what would become Evolution, I even pulled Triple H to the side, and knowing the scuttlebutt backstage, knowing that those four men were going to form a faction, knowing it was going to be the early 2000s version of the Four Horsemen, I even offered up a name to Hunter. I told him, hey, why don't you guys call yourselves the Regulators?
Oh, Hunter was like,
shut up,
He
bitch!
politely told me, yeah, well, I think we got a name already picked out. And he even thanked me. And he didn't have to do that, but he did. My relationship with Triple H that first year was more teacher-student oriented. And I admit, it was one half. I did want to get better. I did want to learn wrestling. But the other half was, I knew this man had the keys to the kingdom. I knew where my bread was buttered. And hey, I'm definitely not too proud to admit there was a little bit of ass kissing, a little bit of brown nosing in there with every question I asked the game. In fact, one thing you might not know about Triple H, and it's definitely something that I admire in people, the man is funny. He has a quick wit. He's great with one-liners, and he has a very big sense of humor. Not many things offend him, and he is definitely one to be in on the joke and many times be the one providing the joke. You might be shocked to find out that the relationship I had with Hunter on day one was the exact same relationship I had with Hunter on my last day in the WWE. What did change, however, was my trust I had in Triple H. And I wasn't the only one. Yeah, guys backstage, guys at the ring, everybody was in his face, laughing, smiling, talking with the man. But they were also trying to better their spot on the card. They were trying to make sure their jobs would remain the next time Vince had his next round of cuts. But guys knew, guys felt, and guys would talk about how Triple H was meandering his way into Vince's good graces.
so some context to this. Triple H has always been known to be in creative meetings, pitching things, and heavily involved in creative process even before he was involved with Stephanie. So let's continue.
Guys would constantly question his relationship with Steph, and I'm never gonna be the determining factor of love, whether it does or does not exist. It's not my job, but I do know the definition of the word convenience, and that was a convenient relationship for Hunter. What I do know is Vince McMahon owned the WWE, and Stephanie's placement at her father's side made it mighty convenient for Triple H. Now, something I will always respect about Triple H is that he took his job seriously. He trained and carried himself like a professional. The older I get, the more I understand that you can get away with a lot when you're young. Now, there are a lot of supplements out there making big promises, but these days, I actually watch what I put in my mouth. That's where
Maven,
T1,
we're going to fast forward. Maybe
vitamin D3. Zapply has a 9. In my younger days, in my early career, I was a go with the flow type of person. I was trying to make friends and I was trying to be liked. And guys would talk about Triple H behind his back. Guys would place every accolade he achieved in the ring on his positioning with Vince McMahon and with Steph, Triple H would become an easy target for guys whose career.
Triple H was already at the top of the card before he was with Stephanie. Triple H had already won the title in 99. Triple H was somebody Vince would look to even earlier than 1999. Triple H was always a Vince guy before Stephanie. So the Stephanie relationship isn't quite to his convenience. When Rock and Austin left in 03, who was left? Triple H was the only one that was left. Vince lost his two biggest stars, and who did he have left? Triple H and Taker, and had to make new ones. Let's continue.
Maybe didn't live up to what their hopes and expectations were, myself included. It was a lot easier to blame, well, oh, hell, I'm not in the main event because, Triple H is dating Steph. I remember when he and Steph were about to get married, the company actually forced us to go to his bachelor party. And you're saying, Maven, how did they force you to go to his bachelor party? Here's how. We would fly in on Friday, wrestle 3 non-televised house shows. Then on Monday night, do Monday Night Raw and fly home every Tuesday. That was how it was week after week. Well, the company decided to have Triple H's bachelor party on a Tuesday night in a North Carolina strip club. And they conveniently made sure our flights were for Wednesday. We had to go. And I can't remember anyone not showing up. Why? Well, of course I was there because I like strip clubs, but most of the guys were there because they just didn't want to be the one that didn't show up to Triple H's bachelor party. Well, actually there was one guy that didn't show up. Who would that guy be? Triple H himself. We were in the club the entire night, and Triple H would show up the last 20 minutes before closing time. Now, I don't know how many guys would have came to his bachelor party if they would have just extended an invitation, but I guarantee you, and I know for a fact, it would not have been as many as they had, since they were flying us out the next day. Hell, he didn't even want to be there. Why the hell would I want to be there? Now, my trust level with Triple H would start to wane over time. I would notice that he would make little snide comments here and there, and I'm certainly one for a joke. Hell, I like being the butt of some jokes, but you can always tell when someone is making jokes about you or they're making jokes to you, when they're trying to tell you how much respect they do or do not have for you. And his jokes would always err on the side of just making sure I knew my place in the wrestling business. And it wasn't just backstage. It wasn't just in snide comments. He did it on TV as well. And I would have people backstage tell me that they saw exactly what I was feeling. And I can even cite a specific example where Triple H wielded his backstage clout to degrade me on air. But we'll get to that later. I didn't know this during my time in the WWE, but I would have it confirmed years after my wrestling career had ended from someone who was actually in those production meetings, someone who went to bat for me, that every time my name was brought up, it was quickly squashed back down. And who was the one doing the squashing? None other than Triple H. If people thought, hey, here's a good idea, here's a good direction that we can send Maven on, here's something that we think he can find success doing, it would quickly be diminished. Nah, he's not ready. He's not there yet. He needs a little bit more time, a little bit more seasoning. And I'm not saying Triple H was wrong. He wasn't. I did need more time, and I wasn't ready.
This is a humble,
but I also know that there's been other people with the same skill level of me, and they did get that extra boost, that extra push. It's just hard to get that push when someone is constantly pulling you back, and that someone has the ear of Vince McMahon. Finding out after my WWE career had ended that what I initially thought was indeed true, it hurt. and it bothered me for a while. And so that's why if you ever see me taking what looks like pot shots at the man, that's probably my reasoning. That's definitely some of my reasoning behind it. I'm far from a perfect person, and sometimes it's hard knowing exactly where my abilities ended and where someone putting their thumb on the scales started. I in no way, shape, or form blame Triple H for my career arc, but it just does hurt sometimes knowing that he indeed was weighing in not on my behalf. At this point, all of this, it's ancient history. It happened over 20 years ago, and I have let go of any bitterness that I once had. In fact, the handful of times I've seen Triple H since my departure from the WWE, it's always been cordial and it's always been friendly. And when he tells me he hopes I'm doing well, I actually believe him, and I hope he knows I feel the same way. But Hunter's role, it's now changed since my day.
So we'll stop right there. That's how Maven feels about Triple H. And I think it's a very humbling take by Maven. I really do. I think the way Maven looks at it, because at the time you're thinking of like, it's no different than work. And Maven, if any of you guys watch Maven's YouTube channel, you guys will see how transparent Maven is about his career. He also talks about that the reason, like I believe he said one time they're going to put the IC title on him, but Johnny Ace will always say, "Hey, you're not going out to the ring before the show and learning or training on your craft." And that was one of the things that led to his release. Maven never actually did those things like that. And there's nothing wrong with if somebody's not ready to get to something. There's nothing wrong with that. Friendly or not, I think in business, you have to be honest about who you have. And I think that there's not a lot of context to this, but if somebody's saying, hey, we should put Maven in the ring with Jericho and put the IC title on him from beating Jericho, or we should put Maven in this feud with Flair, or put Maven in the ring with Randy Orton, and they should have this feud for the IC title. Maven should be in the main event with me for the World Heavyweight title. Nobody was calling for a Maven World Heavyweight Championship match. IC title, maybe. I was a Maven fan, but there's nothing wrong with that being the case of somebody sitting there saying, look, hey, I don't think he's ready. Hey, I don't like that. I don't like that direction. And I don't think anybody would really sit there and say that Triple H was wrong in that instance. Of course, everybody has their own boys and their own ulterior motive. That is any job and any business that we actually go to or do on a day-to-day basis. It's no different. But I think that Maven, he spoke humbly about Triple H. He's transparent about his situation and his career. He's always done that on his YouTube channel. And I think that was a good video. I really do by Maven. So let me know what you guys think about that. Now, we're almost out of here.